March 31st, 2014, I got the call that every woman dreads getting. That huge apricot-sized lump in my breast was breast cancer. And I have spent the last 12 years going to treatment every 3 weeks because lucky me, that cancer was metastatic. Organizations like Susan G. Komen mean a lot to me as a thriver because they offer hope and education, research, and they just give a platform to a disease that so many women in America have. And because of efforts from organizations like Susan G. Komen, the survival rate for breast cancer in the United States and around the globe has increased by something like 40%. This is the week of March 16th, which means it is Podcasthon around the globe. Thousands of podcasters in every country imaginable are spotlighting their charity of choice in their podcast episodes this week. And I am thrilled that Susan G. Komen is the charity that I get to spotlight for you today. I'm welcoming to the stage Gretchen Awad, who is the executive director of Northwest Ohio and Detroit, which Detroit also means all of Michigan, and Dr. Michelle Clark. She is the CEO of Lift After Breast Cancer, and she is also a board member for Susan G. Komen Detroit. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Dr. Michelle, you also have your own breast cancer story. And Gretchen, do you?
I don't, not personally, no.
You don't. Michelle, why don't you share your breast cancer story before we jump into the work that Susan G. Komen does?
Yep, absolutely. And thank you so much again, Kandas, for having us for this phenomenal occasion and spotlighting charities of choice. It's so phenomenal that they're doing that for Podcasthon Week. So my name is Dr. Michelle D. Clark, and I am the CEO and founder of Lift After Breast Cancer. And LIFT is an acronym. It stands for Living Inspired, Free, and Transform. And we answer the question of what's next after active treatment. Because for me, with my breast cancer story, and I don't call it my breast cancer, I call it my breast cancer story because it wasn't mine. Words matter. So with my breast cancer story, it was quite long and arduous. The diagnosis itself was not. I was diagnosed in 2014. And yes, I heard those words as well. And this is how I got the news, Kandas. You know, you have breast cancer, right? That was the call. No, seriously, that was the call that I got. And
of course it was.
From
of
there,
course it was.
Of course it was, right? But from that point, I can appreciate it now in retrospect, just because it didn't allow me to really get emotional. I was still very cerebral when I got the call. I was in between clients. And so I didn't have the opportunity to really break down or get emotional about it. But my mom always taught me one thing, and that is you don't sit in the problem, you go to solution mode. So I just asked the doctor, what's next? And I didn't know how loaded that question was. And it was a lot of ups and downs, twists and turns. I had a mastectomy of my left breast. I also had radiation therapy. I literally saw my body turn to ashes. And it was very alarming because I hadn't been warned about that, if you will. And from there, recovered and had a hard time getting the reconstruct started because prior to stage 2 breast cancer, I had 2 strokes. So then following that, when we were just about to get cleared for reconstruct, I had a mini stroke. So it was a lot of things going on. And unfortunately, they believe that the tamoxifen may have onset the mini stroke. So they had to take me off of that, put me on a aromatase inhibitor. And from there, shutting down my ovaries. Now that put me in menopause, you all. What that meant was a lot. But just to make the long story short, it was very challenging seeing my body change, trying to figure out how to identify myself. Because when you're a doer and you're used to doing things, used to helping others, it's a whole identity shift when you now become the person who needs the help. But the bottom line is I needed it. And I'm so happy and grateful that I had it. Because what we do with Susan G. Komen, I do want to switch on that really quickly because it's so important. With Susan G. Komen and companies and organizations that focus on getting the early screenings, getting the detections, finding out and knowing your breast density, being able to have that piece is so important because it saves lives. And companies like mine, Lift After Breast Cancer, we focus on the after piece. Those support systems, the systems that we put together helps to rebuild those lives. So it's really a match made in heaven. And that's what we focus on with Lift After Breast Cancer. And that was my story, because when I was looking and searching for different organizations that could help me, because when I rang the bell, they all expect us to be well, Kandas, right? They all expect us to be well when you ring the bell. That wasn't my story. And for so many women, it's not their story. We're trying to figure it out, how to get accustomed to this new person that we see in the mirror that we don't recognize.
Yeah.
That fatigue, the brain fog, the mood swings, some of the other things that come with it, the hair loss, the breast loss, when they do the reconstruction, it doesn't look like the augmented breast. It's not a boob job, y'all. It's not. So trying to work our way back into some sort of normalcy, some sort of, okay, now this is the new me. How do I make those adjustments? How can I be the person that I know that not just who I once was, because recovery isn't about going back. It's about healing forward.
You're absolutely right that the support system seems to think that you don't need support anymore after you ring the bell. So let's talk about the work that Susan G. Komen does. And Michelle, you said 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer. I thought it was 1 in 5. Gretchen, what is the actual number? Is it 1 in 8, 1 in 5, 1 in 4? I've heard so many different numbers.
We've heard so many. We are still saying 1 in 8.
Okay.
Will be diagnosed in his or her lifetime. So yes, we are still using 1 in 8. Still too high of a number. Yeah.
Men also get breast cancer.
They do, of course. Men have breast tissue. It's a very, very small percentage, but we want to make sure that we know that men get breast cancer too. And the stigma around saying that, kudos to the men who step up and say, I am in current treatment. I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. It's an important message, but it's a small majority, obviously.
Yeah, it's a small majority, but still, we need to identify that it is not just a women issue.
No.
So I actually have never been a benefit of any of the things that Susan G. Komen offers, because there wasn't an active Susan G. Komen organization in the city that I was in when I was first diagnosed. So I don't even know what you do.
May I be so bold as to say you absolutely have been a benefiter of Susan G. Komen?
I'm sure I have.
Someone living with metastatic. So I'm going to go there, but I'm going to step back a little bit, because you asked me earlier if I have a breast cancer story. Personally, I do not. But what I do have, and I want to say this is my 10-year anniversary with Komen. So I just love that I am a guest on your show. Thank you so much for having me. So what Komen does, and what I love about Komen, is it's really the story of family. It's the story of 2 sisters. And more than 40 years ago, when Susie Komen was diagnosed as a young mom of 2 littles, her sister Nancy Brinker watched her suffer, watched her sit in doctors' offices, had to listen to doctors poo-poo whatever she was feeling. And then eventually passed from breast cancer at the age of, I want to say 37, young, don't quote me, but very young. So Nancy said, unacceptable, I have to change this. And over the course of these 40 some odd years, Komen has become what we are today. And I love to say that every single person I've met in my 10 years of Komen work has had a different story. They have different outcomes. They have different everything. And they also have different needs. So we have people with emotional needs, financial needs, medical needs, obviously. So Komen really supports women and men with breast cancer or most at risk of breast cancer in 4 important ways. One is advocacy, making sure women's healthcare needs, the breast cancer needs, are first and foremost and stay prioritized when it comes to federal, state, and local funding. Working with the American Medical Association, working with all of our friends in the private healthcare insurance companies, all of those things to make sure we don't roll back on anything that's happened. We have a very, very small team in Komen who does nothing but monitor what's happening around the country. If anything pops up, I say to everyone, please become a Komen Advocacy Insider. It's a simple online thing, fill it out, and you will get notices, especially ones targeted to wherever you live and what might be happening. So boom, we got that. Then
there'll be a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect. Then we have the research piece. So for many years, we've been saying Komen is the number 2 nonprofit researcher of breast cancer in our country. U.S. government number 1, Komen number 2. If those numbers have flip-flopped as of recent, I am not quite sure and I don't want to say, but Komen's research is critical. 15 of the last 19 FDA-approved drugs have Komen research, dollars, everything behind them.
That's phenomenal.
It's critical. Women and men are living longer, healthier lives because of what Komen is doing in the space of research. Again, all of that information where those research dollars are going, all available at komen.org. Everything is transparent. Much of those research dollars right now are very focused on metastatic, triple negative, and disparities in breast cancer diagnosis, right? Why are some women being diagnosed at more aggressive and younger ages than others? So that's a lot of where that focus is going. Then we have the group, boots on the ground is what I say, what Komen is doing in the community, right? If you are at risk, if you have financial challenges, barriers to care, if you've never received a mammogram, if you have a language barrier, Kandas, things that, a lot of people don't consider. If you don't drive, if you, any barrier, if you have childcare, if you're a single parent, this is where Komen steps in to make sure that you're getting those diagnostic procedures done, aftercare treatment procedures, all of those. So, and right now within that bucket, our biggest need, our biggest ask, I should say, is financially. If there is a barrier to care, if you are choosing between food or housing and a mammogram, this is when you need to call Komen, please. Again, I hope, I'm assuming all that information will be in that link.
Yes.
But this is when you go to Komen and you'll be immediately connected with a healthcare navigator. They're going to ask you some questions about your need, your financial status, some history things, all of that stuff. And then we'll get you plugged in and get you to go where you need to be. And then that fourth piece, I think that most people almost identify with, is that community. Education, know your body, practice healthy habits, be your own best advocate, talk to your family, know your history, come gather on race day and learn about how to access Komen, learn and talk to other survivors, recognize we're a safe space. Does your family need support in helping you manage this? Contact Komen. All of these things are what Komen is doing. So there's these 4 buckets because Komen over the course of these years has realized everyone has a different story, everyone has different needs, and we need to address all of these needs if we are going to save a life in breast cancer.
You just said something that I hope the audience heard. If your family also needs support. So much focus is on the patient. They forget that that patient may have a spouse or children or parents who are also going through something, because it's very stressful when someone you love is going through treatment. If you've ever been through radiation therapy, it is terrible. By the time you're done with your 6.5 weeks or whatever it is of radiation, you can barely walk, let alone drive yourself, because it is exhausting. It's like it's radiation. So parts of your body are being burned.
It's warfare.
You've suddenly got a sunburn on a part of your body that shouldn't have a sunburn, and you're exhausted. So your caretakers are taking care of you, but no one's taking care of them. So I love that you include support for the family members as well.
Yes.
Talk to me about this race.
Oh, race. Race is fun. Race is fun. Race for the Cure is important. Race for the Cure, we all work remote. I'm sitting in my dining room right now. We work on a really small staff, work remote. We keep our costs as low as possible because that's more money that goes to mission. So when we talk about race, not only is it our most important fun day, but we call it our brick and mortar because it's the one day where our Komen, I don't have an office where people can come gather. We even meet remotely as a board team. So Race for the Cure is our most special day. Our survivors, their families, our community, everyone looks forward to coming and gathering on that day. This year in Detroit, it will be on Saturday, September 12th in downtown Detroit. The race link's open. We're an early bird special. It's kind of a good time for everyone to gather their teams. But this is our biggest fundraiser for a year of the year for a certain reason. Because A, it's where everyone can come gather. They can learn about what Komen does. They can access, we will have Komen Mission on site. You can learn about if you need certain things, you can do all the stuff. but then celebrate. And it's a safe space. We have our Hope Village where our survivors only, Hope Village. We want them to feel comfortable talking to each other, sharing experiences, sharing challenges, successes, anything. But it's big, public, beautiful, celebratory, meaningful, deep, all of the adjectives I can think of. But that is Race for the Cure. And we're celebrating 34 years in Detroit this year. And thrilled and lucky to be doing it.
So the Northwest Ohio, Michigan race is in Detroit for the whole region.
I host one in Toledo as well. So we have Northwest Ohio. That's the in downtown
Toledo and Detroit are like 2 hours apart from each other. If
they are not, you are so wrong. They're 45 minutes from. They're 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Yes.
See, I was wrong. I know I've done that drive once.
Yes, but they're different events. Even though they're the same event, they have different tones. And Toledo's obviously a smaller community, and it's held in a different way. But you feel that pink bubble in both of these events, and it's the same uplifting experience in both those events.
Well, and I think that communities have their own vibe. So Toledo has its own little, I think Toledo's a groovy town. It has its own vibe. Detroit has, I've never been to Detroit other than to drive through it. I cannot believe I've lived in Michigan for 8 years and I have not been to Detroit yet.
Okay, well, you're going to come to Race because we're going to make sure you're there. Yes. And I will say then I also support, I do not manage, but I support the Columbus event, which is the largest Race for the Cure in the country, which
really?
It's insane.
How
so there are a lot. Yes. I think when you combine the state capital, the largest university, huge corporate support, and just downtown Columbus, it's massive.
Well, Columbus is also really close to New York and Pennsylvania. I mean, it's like a hub.
We're very lucky to have in this little Ohio, Michigan market to have 3 really amazing Race for the Cure events that are really, really supported by the communities and really well attended. So you're invited to all of them.
Oh, well, thank you. I also think it's cool because most Michiganders don't like people from Ohio, and most Ohioans don't like people from Michigan. There's some sort of really weird
it's a rivalry
between the two states. I mean, there was actually a war between the two states like 150 years ago.
I think over who got Toledo.
No, yeah, it was over who got Toledo, and that's how Michigan ended up with the UP, with the Upper Peninsula. You know, it's so strange. This whole thing, but this rivalry goes so deep. It's like the Hatfields and McCoy in the Midwest.
And in Toledo, Michigan's about a mile this way. So OSU Michigan week it's crazy. But
so funny.
We all come together when it's important for a race, and it's very fun.
And that's the important thing is you can put aside however you feel about Ohio. I don't have these feelings because I'm not from Michigan. But you can put aside your feelings and just know that it's that everyone is being uplifted when you support in this way. So,
and it's folks like Dr. Michelle who serve on our board who do amazing things. I ping Dr. Clark. I'm like, okay, can you go on TV and share your story and share what Komen does and how everyone needs to come together? There's not a person I have met yet who does not have a connection to breast cancer. So Dr. Michelle is an incredible advocate for what we do, not only year round, but also at race time when there's hyper focus.
There's something important. Since 1 in 8 women is the official number that you're going to use, I've heard so many different ones, but we'll use 1 in 8. Since 1 in 8 is the number we're using, that means that if you were in a room, if you're in any restaurant and you looked around, at least 5 people in that room have had breast cancer or know someone who has. You know, which
shocking.
Means, it is really. I guess you're right. If you are walking to a room, any room, everyone in that room is going to know someone who's had breast cancer because somebody in that room has.
Mm-hmm. I have yet to speak with a group, meet a new group, whether it's friends and family or corporate engagement or anything, where I have said, if you are comfortable, share if you have been personally touched by breast cancer. And Kandas, I mean, every time I've yet to be in a room where no one does raise their hand.
Yeah. So Dr. Michelle earlier talked about the things that we don't know at the beginning. And so my sister was diagnosed, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years before I was. And she told me things and I didn't hear them because I wasn't I wasn't prepared.
Depending on the age, depending on the knowledge, some people are just like shocked and out of the blue. Sometimes they hear it from a sister or a loved one or a friend. This is what happened to me. So they have a little warning. But what's always shocking is when I come to Race for the Cure is we see these friends year after year, God willing, and they always hit, okay, now I'm in this phase. I didn't know this was coming. Now I'm in this phase and I didn't know this was coming. Thank goodness Komen, advocated for this to be covered under my insurance because I didn't know I'd even need it. And I've never even heard of it before. I'm still learning terms after 10 years in. So no, I think knowledge is key in the beginning. That's why we're seeing women diagnosed earlier because they are advocating for this. And, our insurance is making sure that they have those mammograms at an earlier age, even earlier if you have a family history. But no, I think every single time I turn around and someone blesses me with their story, it's different. And that's why we're always changing too. Our breast cancer 101 that I listen, that we attend as Komen employees for all of us, just so we have some, institutional knowledge of it, is it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well,
So I can't imagine.
The research changes constantly.
Yes.
When I first started treatment, the standard of care was to use heparin every time you access a port. Now the standard of care is you don't use the heparin. I mean, and just over time things just change. Isn't the amount of, the ways to offset side effects can be different based on the office that you attend. Every office is different.
Every office is different. And I love that you said that because I recognize that my job comes with certain privileges. And I think I almost didn't understand what equal and equitable meant before I became part of the Komen family. I got my yearly mammogram a few years ago and I had that, tap on the shoulder after I was getting dressed saying the doctor would like to speak to you in the back. And I followed the nurse and I tell this story often. And he sat me down and he showed me the darkened room with all the, the screens and my mammogram. And here I am displayed in all different ways. And he just wanted to explain to me that they have top-notch equipment and I was getting the best mammogram possible and personally tell me that everything looked great because this is what he was seeing. And it dawned on me. First of all, I said, don't ever just tap a woman on the shoulder and tell her to come back and follow you without some sort of warning or reassurance. But it dawned on me that I was getting special privilege in a good way. And it dawned on me that that was pretty unique and it was wildly unfair.
Yeah.
And it was shocking because I know some women fight for even just the most basics. And you're right. Staff training is different. Equipment's different. Standard of care is different. Patient, level
Advocacy.
of patients,
yeah.
All of it's, 1 to 2 nurses per patient versus 1 nurse with 100 patients. Everything is so drastically different. And that's where the equitable care comes in. Mm-hmm. And that's why Komen is at the, we have our patients call our center. So that way, no matter where you live, urban, rural, whatever your challenges might be, we're going to find you the best and closest care.
Yeah. Well, and it also depends on state. The care that I had in the care that I had in Texas, yes. I had great doctors. But I was packed like a sardine into an infusion center where I could literally touch the person next to me. Mm-hmm. I had someone pass out next to me, and the nurse climbed over me to bring him back because that was the only option, right? And then in Michigan, I had my own little suite yes. with my own little yes. TV and chairs for guests to come and talk to me,
which is so great in that experience, but. Big picture awful, right?
Yeah.
Not fair.
Fair. No. And there are so many women who don't know that if you are below the poverty line or you qualify for doesn't matter what state you live in, every 50 state, if you are a woman and you're diagnosed with breast cancer and you don't have enough money to pay your rent, you probably qualify for health insurance through Medicaid. Many states don't want you to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Many states don't want you to know, but it is federal law. And that's probably some work that your organization is doing, helping women navigate that.
Of course it is. We also work closely with FMLA. Don't let your employer threaten your job if you've been diagnosed. There are rules and there are laws that require you to still be at work. So lots of things that we're doing to help support women in every way. And I even say, like, I live in one area. If I drive 5 miles that way, my care would be drastically different. But, I've got, my doctor right up the road and she knows me my name. And, it's just wildly, wildly different. It's
Yeah.
updated equipment. It's updated training, everything.
My other gripe is I once met a woman who lived in eastern Kentucky, right on the border of Cincinnati. And she had to drive 2.5 hours to see a doctor for her rare disease. Why couldn't she just go to Cincinnati? Health insurance. It's ridiculous.
If it's not exactly the right, no, I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Cincinnati was right there.
Nope.
She had to drive 2.5 hours to stay in Kentucky. It just doesn't make sense, especially with so many people. I mean, I lived in Texas, and before that I'm from California. So I lived in states where it took you a long time to get to another state.
Sure. Anywhere. Yeah.
But here in the Midwest, it doesn't take long to get to Chicago or Ohio or Indiana from where I live, right? I can get to any of those places in 3 or 4 hours, right? 3 or 4 hours in Texas, you're still in Texas.
Yes. Texas, the home of Komen, I should say, right? That's the home of Susan G. Komen. That's
Is
our
it?
headquarters. Yes.
Is it Dallas?
Yes.
Okay. Because I didn't really have any, there was no, I lived in Houston when I was diagnosed, and I did not have any dealings with Susan G. Komen at all in the Houston area. It was definitely American Cancer Society. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It's definitely American. Yeah. I mean, I was doing fundraising and all sorts of stuff for
which is a wonderful advocate for all cancer patients. And I will say Komen and the ACS work hand in hand and share a lot of that information. There's no duplicating of research. And so working definitely partnered with ACS.
Which is the way that it should be. There should
a win for cancer research is a win for all. So
exactly.
I love to say that Komen has no ego in this. We share all of our findings.
And what's beautiful is if you find a treatment that works for breast cancer that is a hormone receptive cancer, that treatment could work for other hormone receptive cancers in men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's start with breast cancer and then see what else we can fix with it.
Yeah.
And if you guys at the research level weren't working together and helping and talking to each other, none of this would work. And on an international level, because I know that Europe does a lot of amazing research too. So if North America and South America and Europe and Asia are all talking to each other, everybody's being served.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is global, because it's not just the United States where women get breast cancer, where people get breast cancer.
People. And I love that we see Komen in other countries as well. There are race for the cures all over the world, but working with those communities in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Women face different challenges all over the world.
Yeah.
So how do we work best to support those women where they are, not trying to change how they do it, but given your system, how does this manage and how can we support it and grow it?
Let's talk about the role of gratitude during the treatment process and after, during the recovery process, and then living later. Is there any research that Komen has done into gratitude?
I think that is a fantastic question, and I don't have the answer for that. I feel like I have to reach back in and tell you, but I don't, not that specifically. No, that's fascinating that you asked, and I feel like Dr. Michelle would be better to answer, but I don't think Komen, if they do, I don't feel prepared to speak about that.
Maybe they should.
I don't disagree with you. Can I just say one thing? And I've shared a couple of times that I don't personally have a story of breast cancer. But
you do.
A blessing of my job, and the gratitude that I feel for my job is learning these stories and learning how strong women are. I'm a mother of a daughter. I have a daughter. I have sisters. I have sister-in-laws. I have nieces. My mom is still blessed to be with me. My sisters-in-law, everyone. I love women. I love the women in my community, and that's how I got into this, because I love my sisterhood. And in loving my sisterhood, I was hosting my niece's post-wedding brunch, right? The day after the wedding, you have a brunch for all the out-of-town folks. And Candace, I don't know why I volunteered to do it because it was after race weekend.
Mm.
I don't know. I just was feeling like, oh, I can do it. And I had this darling young woman, could have been my daughter's age, maybe little older, setting up all of her stuff in the, for the catering the next day. And I said, I am so sorry. I feel like I'm very scatterbrained. Just do whatever you need to do in my home. But I'm just coming off a big event and I'm still a little tired. And she said, oh, I know what you do. And I know what your event was. You're Race for the Cure. And I said, "Oh, okay, yes, I'm Race for the Cure." And she goes, I was there. And I said, oh, well, thank you so much. That's so nice. I'm a survivor. And I said, really? And to this day, I tell this story and I get shivers. And she said, I was a recent college graduate. I didn't have a job. I had no health insurance and I found a loan. And my best friend's mom said, I think this is what Komen does. And I think you should call them. And I did. And you paid for my mammogram and the aftercare that I needed, my treatment services. She goes, I don't have a lot of money. I'm a caterer. I'm doing this, building my business. But every year I at least register for RAISE because I know it pays forward. So she said, and I said, so to your point, Candace, that's my gratitude story. I'll let Dr. Michelle take it from here. But that was gratitude in my home when I needed to hear a little bit of, self-assurance, like exhausted from everything, feeling a little, I can't believe I do this to myself every year. It's, gratitude walked into my home and delivered that message to me. And I share that story with many folks, and because it still gives me shivers and it still grounds me. This is the work that I do. And I'm blessed that I feel gratitude that I get to be part of the Komen Network and share my story and meet wonderful new friends like you.
So you do have a breast cancer story.
I do.
You do. So stop saying that you don't.
Okay. Fair.
And
Fair.
I would say,
I don't like to say that in front of you and Dr. Michelle.
No,
No, I don't.
You know what? I know several women who had preemptive mastectomies because of the BRCA diagnosis, right? They were told they had the BRCA gene. So they never had breast cancer, but they have a breast cancer story. Your breast cancer story is being tapped on the shoulder and said the doctor wants to talk to you. Because even though it was to show off their equipment, it is still, you still had that lump in your throat feeling of, oh, shazbot.
Yeah.
Everything,
and you just feel like everything just drops inside you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all the people's lives that you have touched and all the impact that you have made, you absolutely have a breast cancer story.
Well, then I'm happy to share it with you. And Dr. Michelle, I'm blessed to have Dr. Michelle part of this incredible network in Michigan. She's been a game changer for us.
So Dr. Michelle, what are your thoughts on gratitude during the process of healing?
It is the game changer. I know you just stated, Gretchen, that I'm the game changer, but having that gratitude is the game changer. And I wanted to also accentuate, Gretchen, when you said about you didn't have a breast cancer story, and just really kind of piggyback off of what Candace was stating. You do have a breast cancer story. And the most important thing is that it's not just us who have heard the words, you have breast cancer, but if you are even in the vicinity of someone, in proximity of someone, we have supporters and survivors alike. So when we say 1 in 8 women hear the words, you have breast cancer, think about all of the people who are attached, all the men and women who are attached to that one person who now is impacted because of one woman. And we say 1 in 8, but we know that 1% of men also get breast cancer too. So everyone is attached. They have someone that's attached to them. I had some people that were attached to me. My sister, thank goodness she moved in prior to me having breast cancer. She moved in actually 5 months before I had the 2 very massive strokes where I couldn't walk or talk or use my whole right side. And she stayed with me. And fortunately, she was able to continue to stay with me after I had the breast cancer diagnosis. And my mom flew into town. My grandma, she was the one who actually had breast cancer as well, left side, same as mine. When it recurred, unfortunately, she didn't make it the next time around when it came back about 20 years later. So those proximities, my dad, of course, with my mom flying out here to be with me, and he was impacted by that. So, and my daughter was impacted by that. They were younger at the time. I have a son and a daughter. My son has cerebral palsy and autism. Absolutely amazing young man, has his own miracle story. And my daughter, who it's just, both of them were just so phenomenal, but they were impacted as well. I remember a story, and I'll get to the gratitude, but I had to detour here really fast. That I remember one day when I was on the couch and I was watching YouTube. So I was watching a video that was talking about the reconstruction process because I knew that was going to be one of my next steps. And my daughter, who I believe she was around 6, 7, 7, 8 around the time, she walked into the room and she was watching from the couch, and I noticed she was there, and we had a conversation about it. Being a licensed mental health therapist, you would have thought, and for children at that, youth, and I ran groups and things like that, you would have thought that I would have sat her down and had a conversation about it. But the thing is, all those titles aside, I was a human being, and I just was trying to survive. I was just trying to live. So I wasn't really thinking about the impact that it had on others at that time, because I just wanted to live so I could be able to kiss my babies again, be able to hug them, be able to see my daughter walk across the stage, be able to see my son now get his beard and goatee, all of those things. I wanted to see that come to pass. So I was fighting for my life. So this is where the gratitude comes in. Just being happy and grateful that I was able to open up my eyes to see another day to be with them. And so I'm happy and grateful because decades ago, when they didn't even call it cancer, they called it the big C. See, they wouldn't even want to say the name cancer because when you got that cancer, it almost was like a scarlet letter. It was a death note. It's not that anymore. And I'm so happy and grateful that it's not that anymore. So, I mean, if you're going to get breast cancer, of course, this is not a club that I would say you should sign up for voluntarily. But if you're going to get it, first of all, you're going to get a sisterhood like nobody's business. And if you're going to get it, now is the better time because of all of the things that Susan G. Komen has to offer, all the resources, all the research that companies like this are able to give to us. When you talked about being taken into the room and shown off fancy equipment, I had a similar like experience where, yes, I wasn't in a crowded room. I was in my own space. So I'm happy and grateful that that was available to me, that I lived in a city that had these types of amenities, if you will. So being able to tap into that gratefulness helps us to move away from what I call what I've heard it as, and I also embrace the thief of joy is comparison.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to be happy and grateful for what we do have and some of the things that we don't have, because we never know why things have been kept from us for certain reasons, because the pathway may not be clear for us yet. So when we say to whomever the person you may say, mine is God, my entity is God, but it might be your source, your light, your Zen, whatever that case may be. You know, when we say we're so happy and grateful that we're able to live this life. So when we're talking to other survivors, when I'm having the groups, we have a Lift community that we're pre-launching. And so with our Lift community, we talk about the gratefulness, the gratitude. So that way we know that when those things that seen and unforeseen, that's where I was heading when I was talking about the source, things that are seen and unforeseen in our life, we have no idea. We have no idea. The universe is so vast. But what we can do is be happy and grateful for where we are right now. Even if it's in, somebody might say, well, Dr. Michelle, I don't know how I can be happy and grateful for where I am right now because I have this, and this going on. I was just diagnosed. I don't have a doctor. I don't have insurance. I don't have this. I don't have that. But finding something. Do you have running water? When you click the switch on your light, does the light switch come on? When you get out of the bed, do you have an apparatus that's helping you get out of bed, or you get out on your own? You may have lost your hair. Do you have a something that you can, either a head covering or garment, or can you look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful because of? All of these things lead us down the pathway of gratefulness. Because I don't know about you, but if I had the choice of being grateful or being resentful or feeling relative deprivation, I want to choose the gratefulness. Because there's always somebody out there. And this isn't a consolation prize, knowing that somebody out there has it worse. It's not a consolation prize, but it is an adjustment of perspective. because it's not about perfection. It's not about what is, it's about how we see it. Because how we see things changes how things are seen. So for me, gratitude is everything. It's the difference between just being alive and truly living life.
So when I hear you talk about your story, not only were we diagnosed in the same year, but we had some similar things happen to us. You're talking about you're wanting to survive so that you could be there to watch your children grow up. And that was really my driving factor too. My daughter was in 9th grade when I was diagnosed, and I wanted to see her graduate from high school. And then I wanted to see her graduate from college. And then I wanted to see her graduate to have her master's degree. And yet, and I just kept raising the bar, raising the goal, the pushing the goal a little bit further, and as long as you have something to be grateful for in the future, because gratitude isn't just for now or the past, it's also for the future. So if you can be grateful for the things that haven't happened yet, but will happen, it'll keep you going. It'll keep you going. So there, 3 different perspectives on gratitude during the breast cancer process. So if a woman or man has recently learned that they have breast cancer and they need resources, what is the first thing that they should do aside from schedule their appointments with their doctors? Gretchen?
Contact Komen. Komen.org. Komen.org. Learn about resources available in your market. Contact your local Komen executive director who can get you in touch with someone in mission space. Contact Komen.org and reach out to your community, because I guarantee there are people in your network, in your circle somewhere that can offer you a piece of gratitude, words of wisdom like Dr. Clark's, or connect you or tell you a story that you may not have heard before, but will definitely help you in that moment. Contact Komen.org and reach out and share.
All right. Normally at this point, I ask for your moment of gratitude, but both of you have already done it.
I can share one more thing that I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to hear other people's stories, be able to hear their testimonies. There's 2 that really stood out to me that it just, even to this day, it just wells my heart. After attending one of our flagship brunches, there were 2 different ladies on 2 different occasions who spoke with me, and they shared that one young lady said that she hadn't gotten a mammogram in over 30 years. 30 years. But after attending the event, she went and got her because she heard my story. She went and got her mammogram. The young lady shared that she wanted to start a nonprofit. And again, after hearing my story, she was able to, and hearing some of the stories, not my story, but some of the other stories of the ladies who were at the brunch as well. She started her organization. So being able to utilize our voice, that's what matters. So again, not just my voice, but the voices of other survivors, being able to hear their stories and now being able to share their stories, because somebody who's listening right now needed to hear that. Somebody sitting there right now who has not gotten their mammogram, maybe for 20, 30, 40 years maybe, who will now go out and get that mammogram because they heard the story that I shared of another young lady. Mm-hmm. So that's my gratitude, being able to now utilize my voice. And I'm so happy and grateful I have my voice. Because again, when I had the 2 strokes, I couldn't talk at all. So being able to utilize my voice now to be able to not just share my story, but share the stories of others, that is the thing that I guess that just brings me so much joy and gratefulness into my heart. So that would be my gratefulness story to wrap things up, is being able to not just use my own voice to share to others, but hear the stories of others to now be able to share their stories too.
Gretchen, do you have any last words?
I'm grateful to be here today. Grateful to be part of your program. Thank you for letting me share Komen's story. I love sharing the Komen story. I'm grateful to Dr. Michelle. She's an important, critical part of the Komen leadership team in Michigan and Detroit. She's reaching the survivors. She knows the community. I'm grateful for her advocacy. And I'm grateful that Komen's doing what they're doing to save lives in the fight against breast cancer. Thank you for sharing your story with me too, Kandas. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this very special episode of Gratitude Geek during Podcasthon. If you're interested in hearing more charity-focused episodes this week from other creators, I will have a link to Podcasthon in the show notes. It's not an organization, it is just a mission, and it warms my heart when I see how many podcasters participate every year. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.